I used to think I was the smartest man in America, until I lost 10 grand in 10 minutes. Yeah, let that sink in. $10,000. Gone. And the worst part, I handed it over with a smile, thinking I was making the deal of a lifetime. It happened in the early 90s, back when I was in my 40s, living a comfortable life in Austin, Texas. I had a steady job as a middle manager at a respectable company, a mortgage that didn't keep me up at night, and a belief that I could spot a liar from a mile away. Turns out I was dead wrong. And the man who taught me that lesson? Eddie Carter. Eddie wasn't just your run-of-the-mill hustler. No, this guy was a professional. The kind of man who could sell ice to an Eskimo and make them feel lucky to have it. He was smooth, polished, and knew exactly how to make you trust him before you even realized what was happening. I met him at a steakhouse I used to frequent after work. He was sitting at the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. He had the kind of confidence that made people listen. I didn't approach him, he approached me. "You look like a sharp guy," he said, flashing a grin that could disarm a rattlesnake. "Mind if I buy you a drink?" I should have said no. But flattery? That stuff works wonders on men who think they're too smart to be fooled. Within minutes, we were talking like old friends. And then, almost as if by accident, he let it slip, this incredible investment opportunity. A gold mine in Mexico. Exclusive, profitable, completely legitimate. He wasn't even looking for investors. He had enough, he said. But maybe, just maybe, if I was interested, he could pull a few strings. That's when he hooked me. He didn't push. He didn't try to convince me. No, he made it seem like I was the one convincing him to let me in. And boy, did I take the bait. The next morning, I handed him $10,000 in cash. Eddie shook my hand, gave me that dazzling smile, and promised we'd be rolling in gold within the year. 2 weeks later, Eddie Carter was gone. His phone? Disconnected. His office? Empty. The gold mine? About as real as a $3 bill. And just like that, my unshakable confidence crumbled into dust. At first, I refused to believe it. I told myself there had to be a mistake. Maybe Eddie had hit some delays. Maybe he was just busy. Maybe I'd get a call any day now. But as the weeks passed, the truth settled in like a bad hangover. I'd been played. Now here's the thing, I wasn't just mad. I was humiliated. I prided myself on being a smart, no-nonsense kind of guy. And yet, I'd handed over my savings like a fool. The worst part? I couldn't tell anyone. Not my co-workers, because I'd spent years mocking them for making dumb financial decisions. Not my friends, because they'd laugh me out of town. And definitely not my mother, because the only thing worse than losing 10 grand was hearing her say, "I told you so." So I did what any reasonable man would do. I became obsessed. I spent every spare moment reading about scams, frauds, and con artists. I learned about Ponzi schemes, wire fraud, fake charities, every dirty trick in the book. I swore to myself that I would never be fooled again. But there was a problem. The more I learned about scams, the more I saw them everywhere. A grocery store cashier suggested I sign up for their exclusive rewards program. Nice try, buddy. I knew a pyramid scheme when I saw one. The mechanic told me I needed a new transmission. Ha! I bet he was in cahoots with the tire guy. A waiter recommended the chef special? Obviously a plot to push the overpriced fish. I turned into a walking, talking fraud detector. And let me tell you, it was exhausting. It wasn't just businesses I didn't trust. I started second-guessing everyone. Friends, co-workers, even my own family. Once, my own niece asked to borrow $50. You'd think she was applying for a bank loan with the number of questions I asked. What do you need it for? When will you pay it back? Can I get it in writing? Eventually, people stopped asking me for favors. Stopped confiding in me. Stopped trusting me. And that's when I realized I hadn't just lost 10 grand. I'd lost something bigger. I'd lost my ability to trust at all. By the time I hit 50, I figured that was just how I'd be for the rest of my life. Wary. Suspicious. Alone. And then 30 years later, just when I thought I'd put the past behind me, I saw him. I was in a coffee shop, minding my own business, when I heard a voice that sent a chill down my spine. Smooth, confident, too familiar. I turned, and there, sitting at a corner table, flashing that same damn trust me smile, was Eddie Carter. Time hadn't changed him much. A few more wrinkles, a little more gray in his hair, but the essence of the man was the same. And the worst part, he was running the same con. Right there in front of me, he was leaning toward some young guy, selling him on a can't-miss investment opportunity. I gripped my coffee cup so tight I thought it might crack. 30 years. 30 years. And here he was, still out there, doing exactly what he did to me. And in that moment, something in me snapped. I set my coffee down, squared my shoulders, and took a deep breath. Because this time, Eddie Carter wasn't walking away unscathed. I sat there, staring at him, my mind running 100 miles an hour. Eddie Carter. 30 years had passed, but there he was, still playing the same dirty game. Same slick charm. Same smooth talk. Same easy confidence. It was like watching a rerun of the worst mistake of my life. And the poor kid sitting across from him? I knew that look, the wide-eyed excitement, the eager nodding, the way he leaned in, hanging on every word. That was me all those years ago. I clenched my fists, my coffee growing cold in front of me. I could have walked away. But 30 years of regret had been simmering inside me. And today, Eddie Carter was about to learn that the man he scammed wasn't the same fool he once was. I stood up, grabbed my coffee, and walked straight to their table. "Excuse me, son," I said, tapping the kid on the shoulder. "Mind if I have a word with your friend here?" Eddie turned, and for a split second, just a flicker, I saw recognition in his eyes. He knew me. Somewhere buried in that conman brain of his, he knew exactly who I was. But Eddie Carter was a professional. "Ah," he said, breaking into that damn grin. "I'm sorry, have we met?" I pulled out the chair across from him and sat down, sipping my coffee slowly. "Oh, come on now, Eddie," I said, tilting my head. "You don't remember me? That hurts, pal. I mean, we did go into business together once." The kid looked between us, confused. Eddie, to his credit, barely missed a beat. "Ah, well, I've done a lot of deals over the years," he said smoothly. "Remind me, which one was ours?" I grinned. "The gold mine," I said. And just like that, I had him. For the first time, I saw the mask slip. It was just a flicker, a twitch in his jaw, a slight narrowing of his eyes. But it was there. "Gold mine?" Eddie repeated, forcing a chuckle. "You must be mistaken, friend." I turned to the kid. "Funny thing, son," I said. 30 years ago, this man right here promised me a surefire investment in a Mexican gold mine. Told me I'd triple my money. Sound familiar?" The kid's face went pale. Eddie let out a short laugh. "Now hold on just a minute, and wouldn't you know it," I continued. "After I handed him 10 grand, poof, vanished. Just like magic. Guess I must have misplaced the paperwork." The kid pushed his chair back slightly, his fingers tightening around his wallet. Eddie's easygoing smile faltered. Now, Eddie said, his voice all honey and smooth edges. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Oh, no misunderstanding at all, Eddie." I leaned forward, my voice dropping just enough to make him squirm. "I just figured, since we're old business partners, you wouldn't mind if I called a few friends. Maybe the police. See if they'd like to catch up, too." Eddie's entire demeanor shifted. Gone was the charm. The confidence. For the first time, he looked nervous. He grabbed his briefcase and stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled over. "Gentlemen, I think I'll take my leave." "Oh, come on now, Eddie," I called after him. "Stay a while. Maybe tell the nice folks here about all your successful business ventures." But Eddie was already moving. Out the door, past the counter, practically running. He was so desperate to escape that he knocked over a display of coffee beans on the way out. I watched him go, a slow, satisfied grin spreading across my face. Eddie Carter had run out of luck. I turned back to the kid, who was still sitting there, looking stunned. "How much was he trying to take you for?" I asked. 5 grand, the kid muttered, shaking his head. I was seriously about to give it to him. I nodded. "Yeah, I know that feeling." The kid exhaled sharply, rubbing his face. "Man, I owe you big time. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said, standing up. Just promise me something. Next time something sounds too good to be true, walk away. He nodded quickly. Oh, believe me. Lesson learned. I patted him on the shoulder and made my way toward the door. The cafe was buzzing, people whispering, glancing toward the mess Eddie had left behind. I caught the barista's eye and gave her a little salute. Sorry about that, I said. She smirked. That guy a friend of yours? Not exactly, I replied. More like a long overdue rematch. As I stepped outside, the sun felt a little warmer on my face. For 30 years, I had let that mistake haunt me. I had let it make me bitter, let it turn me into someone who saw the worst in people. But today I won. Not just against Eddie Carter, against my own past. I took out my phone and saw a text from my son. Hey Dad, dinner tonight? My treat. I smiled. Yeah, kid, I muttered to myself. I think I finally earned myself a free meal. And with that, I walked away, leaving Eddie Carter and the weight of 30 years behind me.